Company, we had heavy fire from a vehicle. We don't know what type of vehicle it was, how many vehicles it were happening. So once we tried to extinguish the fire here. We did upgrade it to a hazmat box because we got reports that it could have been a tanker or something like that. We don't have that confirmation at all. At that point in time, we brought more resources here to the incident.
Seeing another plume of smoke emanating from the highway. This is a really stubborn fire, difficult to get under control. So firefighters are working to extinguish the flames. They're also they could very well be needing to pour additional water to keep any hot spots from flaring up. So this is just a huge mess for people. And to recap and emphasize, I-95 North and South are shut down between Bridge Street and Academy Road. So if you're in Northeast Philadelphia, stay away from I-95 and the surrounding areas. This is going to be a huge impact on the morning commute tomorrow. And you can bet that when traffic is detoured onto the local roads, it's going to cause a huge buildup of traffic, especially Roosevelt Boulevard. There could be a much larger influx of vehicles on Roosevelt Boulevard tomorrow because the interstate is shut down and people still need to get where they're going, get to school and get to work. So it's an issue that we're going to be on top of for the next several days, weeks, and months. We will bring you the latest information as we get it. Stay with us on air and online as new details emerge. Jan?
Under all of that behind me. So that could take days on its own.
Madeline, you are absolutely right in saying that this is going to create a ripple effect. We're not just talking about I-95 and that surrounding area near Princeton Avenue. This is going to be a ripple effect throughout the region. No doubt about that. Chopper 3 over the scene here, taking a look at this section of I-95 that has significant damage to it this morning after that vehicle fire. Those northbound lanes, that's what you're looking at. That's completely collapsed. We're told the southbound lanes have damage as well, buckling there in the southbound lanes. I want to take a look at now some new video just into our newsroom. This is citizen video showing what it looks like there on, I believe that's I-95, heading toward the fire as that thick black smoke billows into the air.
Look at that, brush fire on I-95.
You can hear the driver talking there, commenting on the fire that's happening on 95. Imagine that road was open as this fire is happening below and eventually would cause that section of I-95 to come crashing down. Stunning video there inside of a car on the highway as this fire burns and creates complete destruction of one section of the highway and even buckles the other section of the highway. So we're looking at citizens video. It looks like that driver heading southbound as that fire rages out of control in the northbound lanes. Chopper video here now, back live on scene. This is the result of what that fire created. The northbound lanes there, you just see a black hole. That is where the fire was burning, and now those lanes have come crashing down. We see that we have crews on I-95 in the southbound lanes there, of course. Part of what's happening today will be assessing the damage to the southbound lanes to see what structural integrity that's left there. And of course, the firefight continues as our Madeline Wright on the ground has been talking about just the extreme conditions that firefighters are working with when you talk about trying to get all of the flames extinguished under a section of the highway that has come crashing down. A lot still unclear this morning exactly how that fire started with the vehicle and if there are any injuries to report. So this is an ongoing situation that is in flux at this hour. Madeline has been reporting there on scene with officials talking about how this is not only going to be a long day for firefighters, but a long couple of days, weeks, possibly months as we try to fix this damage. And then there's the environmental concern. The Delaware River is nearby. We have had air quality concerns over the last couple of days because of wildfires. Now here we are talking about it in the city of Philadelphia, this time with this car fire, this vehicle fire, and portion of the highway coming crashing down and catching fire. And that's why we want to bring in meteorologist Tammy Sousa. She has been breaking down exactly the toxic chemicals that could be in this, because we're talking about a vehicle fire that has brought a section of the highway down, Tammy.
You're talking about a vehicle fire, you're talking about the section of the a highway, you're talking about dust, you're talking about particulate matter, you're talking about chemicals, you're talking about acids, you're talking about organics. All of this is mixed in with this smoke plume that came out of this, and every time it fires back up, you're getting the same thing pumped into the air. So I just went through and I checked all of the readings right now. This is your AQI index. So the higher it goes, the more dangerous it is. Now in Torresdale, it is at 99. That is closest to the fire. That is where you saw that smoke plume come out. So it is already ticking over into that unhealthy for sensitive groups air mass. If we're in Philadelphia, it's at 85, 80 in Trenton, which is upstream from it. So it really hasn't reached Trenton too much yet. 83 at the Betsy Ross Bridge and 78 in Elkins Park. So we are looking at this affecting the area. So if you're off to the north and the east of where this fire is, you have to be concerned. As you look at that giant hole in the road, you realize this is a pretty big deal. We are dealing with a lot of chemical that came out of this. So our winds are out of the south and the west about 5 miles an hour, and they are gently blowing what is left of this smoke off to the north and the east. Now, because it's so close to the ground, again, we're not seeing it disperse all over the place. We're seeing it very close to the area and then falling to the ground. So if you live in any of these areas, you're talking about West Torresdale, Ben Salem, maybe Delanco, Riverside, up to Capitol Hill, maybe even as far as Croydon, you are going to see perhaps some of this chemical in the air where you are. You may not visibly see the smoke plume. That may have dissipated, but that is going to be carried along in the air. What is in that air? Nasty things that you don't want to breathe. So while this is ongoing, until they are certain that they have all the fires out, and then give yourself a little extra time to let that air settle down, this is what you have to be concerned with: acids, sulfates, nitrates, metals, soot, dust, tar, and oils. All of this is burning. When you talk about a vehicle fire, if it is indeed a tanker, what is inside of it that is burning? You're talking about the roadway, everything that made up the roadway. You're talking about all of the organics surrounding it, meaning all of the brush surrounding it, the road underneath it. All of this is being pumped into the air. Now, again, this is not going to linger for a long period of time, but if you're upstream of this fire, you do want to make sure you shut your windows and perhaps don't go outside until this is settled down. We're talking about something that will be later today and you'll be fine. I mean, this is going to dissipate, but right now, while this is still ongoing and flaring up, this is not a good thing. This is something you do not want to be involved with. Our air quality has bounced between good and moderate the last day or so. We're in the moderate range across much of the area. We were expected to go into this unhealthy for sensitive groups in southeastern Pennsylvania today just because of those southwest winds blowing any particulate matter into the area that was left from the wildfires. On top of that, we're going to be pushing 90 degrees in Philadelphia today, so it's very hot, it's humid, and this is the type of weather that actually triggers one of these air quality alerts. We get these very frequently in the summertime, but to see just one specific area bounce up ahead of the others tells you that there is some particulate matter to be concerned with in the air there, and that's what we're keeping an eye on. We're watching these numbers as they climb. Again, this is not anything to panic about, but just be smart. Shut your windows. You don't want to breathe in any of the nasty things that came out of this fire. And as Madeline said, it's been flaring back up, so we want to make sure that you're safe. And if you're north and east of it, within a couple of miles, you definitely want to close those windows, stay indoors until this is all settled down. Or if you're going somewhere, go out, get in your car and go somewhere. But we just don't want you standing out in your front yard breathing any of this. Jan, back over to you.
Exactly, Tammy. We just want to give people the heads up and ways to stay safe and who might be most impacted. Tammy, thanks so much. We want to bring in now our anchor and chief investigative reporter, Joe Holden, to shed some light and perspective about this area and the infrastructure there. Not only that, Joe, but we know you are well versed in environmental concerns as well. So you have some to break down, a lot to break down here about what's happening out there on I-95 this morning. Hi, Joe.
Hi, John. Good morning. I wish it was under better terms. And in fact, my gut reaction when I saw this morning was, oh, my Lord, the highway is gone. And you could clearly see that from chopper video. No question about the integrity gone. Tamar Alexander from the managing director's office telling us it will be a long time to address this. So environmentally, let's start there. It's hard to contain some of these volatile chemicals and really flammable toxins when there's a fire still burning in that area. I was looking at some maps of how the sewer lines integrate in that area. And so if there was a tanker truck under Interstate 95, that in the process of burning ruptured and then began to leak. It is so close to the river. You have a water treatment facility not too far away from the area of Cottman and State under Interstate 95. So there is a lot of infrastructure going on. And if you think about path of least resistance with water, it's heading to the river. And if there is an ignition source, and there was, firefighters are contending with, as Madeline Wright very vividly described an hour or so ago, these manhole covers flipping through the skies like coins. An incredible and alarming visual just to even think about. The highway itself, let's talk about it. If you're from Philly, you know this area. The Federal Department of Transportation and PennDOT have been working on this 6 to 8 mile stretch of Interstate 95 for forever. It's at least a 10 to 12 year long project at this moment. It's expected to stretch for a few years more, where they were rehabilitating, reconfiguring, and expanding the highway. This is the really nice stretch of Interstate 95. It is wide. There's actually almost, you could say, room for error in this area as opposed to what 95 used to look like. And then being from Philadelphia, if you were here, if you were around, if you were born and raised 1996, most of us can recall an eerily reminiscent situation near Bridge Street where they determined an arson started a massive tire fire that completely undermined the highway. It was closed for weeks. It spelled a transportation nightmare in trying to get from one end of Philadelphia to the other side. And what's the big picture, folks? What does that mean? From one end of Philadelphia to the other side, that affects the Northeast and the Southeast, the Mid-Atlantic of our entire network of going from A to B. Interstate 95, according to federal transportation records I just looked at in this area, carries 125,000 vehicles. There can be give and take in that number. That's an average of daily ridership, but this is the main arterial north and south in our country. And the fact that it is clotted, if you will, it is broken, it is in pieces at the Tacony area in Philadelphia is deeply troubling. And again, the reporting of the managing director is this is going to be a long time. And the head of OEM at the scene there says that this is broken. The highway is broken. It is gone, in his words. And some information I'm getting right now, the city, all of the stakeholders in this will be having a conference call. So that's going to be a behind-the-scenes chat about what are we going to do with this. Department of Transportation and federal agencies run drills for this kind of stuff. They have, big boards and whiteboards that point out if there is a catastrophic incident on Interstate 95. This falls under that characterization, that they then start putting up advisories. Truck traffic, vehicular traffic should probably south of us be thinking about the Delaware Memorial Bridges, using the Jersey Turnpike to get north. Chandler's been watching, and the coverage has been informative about how to get around this. That is going to take place in this conference call. The environmental end of it is going to also unfold, as well as whatever investigation now picks up. I'm asking all around about whether there are signs of an investigation heading in a particular direction. Everyone is paying particular caution not to, I would say, mischaracterize the moment we're seeing right now, but they're trying to put that fire out, contain any environmental runaway, these chemicals and toxins and accelerants, trying to get a handle on this. And Jan, I know we talked about a lot, and I really think that this incident, certainly hearing from my sources, nothing short of a catastrophe.
Oh, absolutely. This chopper video is absolutely stunning. We're talking about the Interstate 95, that is broken and crashed down onto the road below. And Joe, unfortunately, as you mentioned, we saw an eerily similar situation just about 30 years ago. I wonder if you can provide even more perspective and comparison between those two, what happened in 1996 compared to what we're seeing on our screen right now, and to compare the possible length of repair that happened then and what we could see now, this being so much more significant.
You know, Jen, I remember I was a junior in high school and glued to the news because, you know, in the immediate days after this, Philadelphia discovered they store a lot of tires under the interstate. There were a lot of tire lots and used tires and old tires. There wasn't really a recycling of tires in 1996, and it melted the road. The superstructure of Interstate 95, the steel and the concrete melted under the intense heat of that tire fire in 1996. The Pennsylvania Department of Transportation had a somewhat of a Band-Aid solution to it, but it was, oh man, I think it was several months, maybe a year before the actual lanes of the highway were back to what the Department of Transportation would grade as sufficient to carry the amount of vehicles that the highway does carry. Another thing that I know they are able to do in an urban area such as Philadelphia, it's a little trickier, but if the southbound lanes of Interstate 95 have not been compromised, and I know they're testing concrete, that they're taking samples, that's all going to happen as soon as it's safe. If the fire is still burning and it is not safe, they can't go in there, but they will determine if they can shift two-way traffic, make that onto the southbound lanes. But how do they do that in respect to exits, on-ramps, off-ramps? All of that, I'm told by my sources, is coming up to debate and discussion at this 10 o'clock conference call, and I will be minding the situation to see what best and timely reporting we can draw from that.
I was thinking the same thing. Can they even use the southbound lanes? This was a huge fire, and we already know that there was damage done to the southbound lanes. Can they fix that? Can they use that to help ease traffic in that area? Joe Holden calling in for us, providing that perspective on the infrastructure in this area and environmental concerns moving forward. Joe, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Jen.
And you just saw those manhole covers that were still smoking. Now we have traffic cameras in the area showing all the roads closed. There you go. I-95 in the area of Princeton Avenue, both directions shut down at this hour. Those lanes have been shut down since right after 6:15 in the morning when all of this started. We want to bring in our reporter there on the scene, on the ground. Our Madeline Wright has been describing the firefight that's happening. She also has an update on possible injuries as a result of this vehicle fire and the overpass or I-95 coming crashing down. Madeline, what's the latest now?
Good morning, Jan. There's been a lot of activity over the last several hours. We're not seeing anybody leaving the scene. In fact, we're seeing more and more people coming. They've been stepping on this yellow tape and driving over it. Police, as well as the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection, because the Delaware River is only about a block away from where this vehicle caught fire underneath I-95. And there is a lot of vehicles, both police, fire department, and Office of Emergency Management. Just to catch you up to speed right now, if you haven't looked into or if you haven't watched our coverage, I-95 North is shut down for about 7 miles between Bridge Street and Academy Road. This is going to have a huge impact on the afternoon, evening, and morning commute for the next day, week, and most likely months. This is a major catastrophe with I-95 North shut down because it's collapsed, and the southbound side is also compromised due to buckling. The initial call came in around 6:30 this morning. There was a call about a vehicle on the ramp that had caught fire. When firefighters got here, they found heavy flames, but they couldn't get to the seat of the fire because it was buried underneath a large amount of debris. In fact, you could see some of that debris right now. There were also There was also a large amount of smoke, black smoke billowing into the air. You could see it for miles. And now I want to play some sound from one of the officials during the press conference earlier this morning, talking about some of the challenges that firefighters are facing.
Companies arrived on location and they found we had heavy fire from a vehicle. We don't know what type of vehicle it was, how many vehicles it were happening. So we tried to extinguish the fire here. We did upgrade it to a hazmat box because we got reports that it could have been a tanker or something like that. We don't have that confirmation at all. At that point in time, we brought more resources here to the incident.
Right now, there's an investigation underway to try to determine the cause of the fire and to track down the person who owned the vehicle that caught fire. Right now, police don't know if there was anybody in the vehicle as it was burning. Also, in the wake of this incident, there were about 12 or 13 explosions that I heard with manhole covers exploding. They were flipping in the air like coins. And the reason that happened is because some of the fuel from the burning vehicle went into the underground pipes and caused a buildup of gas, which caused the manhole covers to explode. So police are urging people to not park on the manhole covers, not to walk on them, and in general, stay away from this area. There's a 2-block radius around the interstate that is shut down as a result of this emergency response. I've been a reporter for 11 years, and I've never seen damage to a highway this significant. It's going to take some time to assess the damage and to repair the damage to try to get this highway back up and running again. So again, major impact on the commute with I-95 north and south shut down between Bridge Street and Academy Road. Still working to get more details on if there were any serious injuries. Jan?
Thank you so much, Madeline. And our Joe Holden is saying that city leaders are having a meeting this morning to discuss all the many things involved in this catastrophe about the firefight, how to reroute traffic, environmental concerns. And speaking of environmental concerns, not only do we have the Delaware River running close by to this area, and as firefighters work, there is concern about the runoff that will then get into the Delaware River. There is that concern about all the smoke in the air. We've seen viewer video on the Citizens app showing just how thick and dark that smoke was when this fire raged out of control. And then when we see that smoke, you know, that gets into the air. There's a concern about what people are breathing right now. Bringing in meteorologist Tammy Sousa to break down what's in that smoke and how people can protect themselves as they are out and about later on today. Tammy.
Well, the closer you are to this fire or were to this fire, the worse it was for you. Those firefighters, they're right in the thick of it. And let's treat this as if it was an auto fire, a vehicle fire. Those can be some of the deadliest fumes to inhale on the planet. So know that this was a huge plume that went up that had a lot of stuff in it. It had some of the road material in it. It had, I'm going to turn this way so you can see the road, some of the road material in it. It had some of the debris underneath. It had whatever was in that vehicle, that tanker, that car, whatever the load was, the vehicle itself, the underbody of the roadway, all of this went up. And this has a lot of nasty chemicals in it. Now, at this point, we're not seeing those huge plumes coming up, but there is still smoke coming up. And the smoke that did come up is still settling across the area. And it goes out several miles. It doesn't just fall right there. We have a light wind coming out of the southwest, blowing it, excuse me, through the area. Let's take a look at some of the AQI numbers. Now, this is the air quality index, and all of last week we were talking about numbers much higher than this, but for a very different reason. We had a huge smoke plume over us. This is actually today, we were expecting to be perhaps in parts of the southeastern Pennsylvania area into this moderate range or this unhealthy for sensitive groups range. Well, the only place that is near that range is the Torresdale sensor. The rest of the area, Philadelphia is at 85 and holding steady. Trenton, which is upstream, at 80. So that smoke didn't really reach there. The particulate matter didn't really reach there. Hainesport, which is nearby, and this is a west-southwest wind, 92 and climbing. We are looking at Elkins Park at 78. So you can see right in this area closest to where that plume went out, those numbers have gone up, which tells us that we do have that dangerous particulate matter that was out in the air, that was dispersed out into the air mass out there. So what we're watching right now is a wind coming in out of the south and the west, about 5 miles an hour. It's a light wind. It's not going to disperse this quickly. It's just lightly carrying that smoke out right about here, approximately the fire. If I go in a little bit closer, you can see that the winds coming out of the southwest and slightly to the west at times. They're involving places like perhaps as far away as Bensalem, Delanco, you're nearby, Delran. We're looking at perhaps West Torresdale. If I go a little closer, you're going to see exactly who is being affected. This is possibly Cornwall, Echo Beach, again, Torresdale, West Torresdale. We go over perhaps Riverside, Delanco, maybe as far away as Croydon. Now, you're not going to see a big plume of black smoke in the air. Instead, your air is going to be hazy today anyway, but this particular matter is mixing in with what is in your air mass right now. So that's the big concern. And what is in it? Well, let's add benzene to this list. That is a deadly chemical right there. Acids, sulfates, nitrates, all of this dangerous to breathe in. Metals, soot, dust, tar, and oils. Now, we don't want to frighten you and we don't want to alarm you, and you need to go about your day, get in the car, go somewhere, do what you're going to do. But if you are near upstream, within several miles of this, we really want you to shut your windows, wait till this all settles down, and then you can go about your business, because you will not see the particulate matter that you're breathing in with all of this. And again, this will be gone rather quickly. This is not like those the smoke from those wildfires that hangs around for days and days and days, but you are immediately in the line of all of this. So you need to shut your windows and don't go outside unless you're just going to hop in your car and go somewhere. Jan?
Tammy, about how long does this type of smoke stick around? Because you just mentioned this isn't days and days like the wildfire.
Right. Well, imagine a vehicle fire. You see it go up. You see all the plume. Or you talked about earlier, excuse me, the tire fire. Well, that can go on for days because tires can burn that long. But that smoke is fairly isolated to a small area. It's close to the surface of the earth. So whatever is there is going to fall out quickly to the ground. So we're talking about something that by later this afternoon, things should be fine. It should be calmed down. The air should have dispersed enough. But if you're close to where this fire is, you don't want to be breathing any of this in, even a little bit of it, because this is going to be like breathing that wildfire smoke from last week and you were running around with masks on and trying to protect your lungs. And that's what we're telling you now. Protect your lungs. If you're nearby this fire, shut the windows. Don't go outside until this is settled down this afternoon. When you're sure there's no more plumes of smoke coming up, give it a couple more hours and then you're good to go. Jan?
All right, sounds good. Thank you, Tammy. Appreciate that. Want to take a look at our traffic cameras. Oh, first, Citizen app here. The video that's been coming into our newsroom showing what Tammy was mentioning, that thick black smoke coming from this vehicle fire near I-95 and Princeton Avenue. That's the type of situation we were dealing with earlier this morning. And that fire has been sparking on and off all morning long as firefighters continue to fight. Ground video there showing firefighters battling those flames. So as she mentioned, we just want to warn you that this might be what you're smelling in that area, and you might want to take precautions, especially if you are in that sensitive group. Now, we want to talk about not only the firefight, but we want to talk about the detours to get around in this area, because this might be a Sunday morning, and yes, traffic will be lighter than we would see during a typical work week, but hey, people are getting up. They have plans today. I know there is a Philadelphia Phillies game happening this afternoon at 1:35 at Citizens Bank Park. A whole lot of fans wondering how to get around this area to get down there. With all of that, we have our traffic anchor, Chandler Lutz, here, tracking all the different various ways to get around this mess. Chandler.
Good morning, Jan. Yes, trying to figure out the best alternates for you. Of course, this is not something that happens every day. 95 is going to be impacted for quite some time, and we are talking about closures right now, not just for one direction. It's closed in both directions. So 95 blocks from the Allegheny, the Betsy Ross Bridge exit, basically, which is exit 26, all the way up to exit 32, which is Academy Road, Linden Ave. It's about a 6-mile stretch there that we're talking closures in both directions. So how can you get around this? The biggest thing I can tell you is make a plan as you travel out, whether you're traveling to the Phil's game or to any events today, and then think about your morning commute tomorrow, because right now we have this highway blocked off. We're trying to figure out if they can reopen somehow the southbound direction, but they have to, the median, we need to talk about the structural damage that is compromised. So Torresdale Avenue, Frankfurt Avenue, state roads. If you're traveling locally into Coney, those are alternates. You have Aramingo, which turns into Harbison as well. Route 1, I can't say it enough, Roosevelt Boulevard, northbound, southbound, is your best alternate for that 95 closure in the area. Also, if you want to head into New Jersey, think about our highways there. We have Route 130, I-295, the New Jersey Turnpike. If you're traveling north anywhere in that area, the Ben Franklin Bridge was actually closed this morning for a bike-a-thon fundraiser that is now back open. So if you need to travel in and out of the city into New Jersey, you could take the Ben over the Betsy, again, because that is, you cannot travel from the Betsy Ross Bridge to 95 southbound right now. That is closed. So a lot of alternates in the area. This is all unraveling, but the best piece of advice is to make that plan to avoid these traffic troubles. This is going to be a headache for commuters, but Roosevelt Boulevard is your best bet as of right now, Jan.
All right, Chandler, thanks so much. Appreciate the update. We know a lot of people are going to be out there today wanting to know how to get around. The one thing we know for sure is that you got to build in a lot of extra time because everyone else is going to be taking those detours along with you. Chopper 3 over the scene right now. This appears to be video from earlier today. This is not live. This is video from earlier today, but it still shows what is actually happening out there as we speak. This vehicle fire started around 6:15 this morning in the area of I-95 and Princeton Avenue. Our Madeline Wright has been reporting from this scene. She's hearing from officials that this vehicle was on the off-ramp there, that it caught fire underneath I-95, and that's what caused this huge fire and subsequent collapse of I-95 onto the road below. That's what you're seeing. Those are the northbound lanes of I-95. You can see those are collapsed, and we're told there is damage to the southbound lanes as well. So what we have happening here this morning, firefighters are on the scene. They are still battling flames, and Madeline is able to join us right now with an update from the scene and the firefight. Madeline.
Good morning, Jan. I just talked to a man who lives in the area. He's worried that the north and southbound side of I-95 will be shut down for years. And in fact, he's already making plans to alter his commute. He says normally he drives to work from Tacony to Bensalem, where he works at an air conditioning company. It's about a 5-mile ride. And he says now he's going to take his bicycle to work because with the interstate shut down, that's going to cause a ripple effect, and a lot of the local roads where the traffic is being detoured could get backed up, like Roosevelt Boulevard. And he's worried that people are going to be stuck in really bad traffic because this is a very populated area. Traffic already, as it is, can get bad. Now with this additional flow of vehicles, there could be even more of a jam. So now he's going to be taking a bicycle to work. I want to show you the intersection of State Road and Princeton Avenue. This is the base of operations for the fire department, the police, and the Office of Emergency Management. They've been working to address this emergency, and fire department is trying to put the fire out right now because it's still smoking. I want you to listen to one of the officials from the news conference earlier with an update on the situation.
Today's going to be a long day, and obviously with 95 northbound gone, and southbound questionable, it's going to be even longer than that. So this is all very preliminary right now. We really just kind of want to tell you guys what the next couple hours look like, and what it looks like is getting all those agencies involved, whether they're headquartered here in Philadelphia, Harrisburg, or beyond, engaged on the same page and make sure we understand what needs to happen. The recovery alone is going to be, it's heavy construction equipment going to be required to come in and start to remove that debris there.
Citizen app video showing the huge black plumes of smoke billowing into the air in the aftermath of this vehicle fire. The vehicle was burning underneath I-95, which led to I-95 North collapsing, I-95 South buckling. There's a 7-mile stretch of the interstate that's shut down between Academy Road and Bridge Street. It's unknown how long it's going to be shut down, but there's going to have to be an assessment of the damage, repairs. Construction vehicles will have to be brought in, and in fact, construction vehicles are already they're already working to bring them in just to fight the fire because the fire is seated underneath several thousand pounds of steel, so it's been very difficult for firefighters to get to the source of the flames. Also, a 2-mile 2-block radius around the interstate has been shut down because it's not safe to be here right now in further closer to where the fire broke out. Some of the manhole covers have been exploding due to the buildup of pressure in the underground pipes. I saw one of the manhole covers flipping in the air. There was a big explosion, several of them, within the last hour or so. That thankfully has subsided, but the smoke is still billowing. It's been going on and off all day. It's going to be a long day for firefighters, and it's going to be a long week for the city. The man I talked to earlier this morning, he said that Philly's had a lot of losses lately. They lost the World Series, they lost the Super Bowl, and now they've lost the interstate. At least this part of it. So if you're tuning in right now, make sure to come up with an alternate. Make your backup plan. How are you going to get to work? How are you going to get to school with I-95 north and south shut down in this area of northeast Philadelphia? So, it's just going to be a long day, and we'll have another update as more information becomes available. Jan?
You're right, Madeline, in that people need to start thinking about it now and have various options, because maybe they try the first one on Monday and that doesn't get them there because so many people are taking those detour routes that they have to try 2 or 3, or in your case, that man who was taking his bicycle. So incredible stuff. Madeline, thank you so much. We want to bring in again now our anchor and chief investigative reporter, Joe Holden. He had been standing by and waiting for a call that involved city leaders and how they're going to tackle this problem. We understand that he has an update about what that call was about and the information coming out of that this morning. Joe?
Yeah, hi, Jan. The first priority here is putting out that fire and getting some readout from the call itself that's still ongoing at this point. It started just shy of 10 o'clock this morning, involving key stakeholders. We're talking mayor's office, state, federal, departments of transportation, fire, EMS, everybody. Anybody who's at the table, they're on this call. This call is dealing with, again, putting out that fire, assessing risk and integrity of the remaining superstructure of the southbound lanes of Interstate 95. Most pressing is, can they divert traffic and do what would be like an interplay with those remaining lanes to move commerce and people and cars in that intersection of Interstate 95? It would be a constriction traffic setup if they were to use those lanes to reopen in both directions. The problem is fire's still burning, can't take the adequate level of testing that they would need to make that assessment. So taken from there, why is the fire still burning? Fire sources in the fire department make that tell me that whatever was in this tanker associated with why the fire has not gone out has leached into the sewer laterals in the system. There is a lot of interconnectivity there. Philadelphia, not to give you the textbook here, but has a combined sewer sanitary storm flow. So it's an interlacing of multiple main lines there in that area. And they are, in terms of trying to fight the fire, fighting an underground battle from above. You just can't, put enough water on this thing. They're trying to figure out what the tanker may have been carrying, if there was anything residual, if it was full. They have the hazardous emblazoned signatures on these things that tell them what's inside. So they're trying to figure that out. And then lastly, again, it becomes a real-time thing, moving people from A to B, getting around this. I'm told that this is pretty much a nightmare scenario as far as the flow of people and commerce. Lastly, Jan, I was touching base with a structural engineer just for some observation, some takeaways, some look. Give me a sense of what you see from what is exposed on that highway. And if you notice from the video, it is a full deck that collapsed. The deck itself is not in pieces. It's not crumbled, at least not at this point. It fell like a full slab, a full deck. So that, in this person's estimation, is that whatever was burning really did the trick, did its job on some of the steel infrastructure and girding support systems under the highway itself. So there's an early read from you from a structural integrity perspective. Still side texting with some of the folks as part of this conference call, and I'll push information your way as soon as I get it.
Yeah, and Joe, earlier this morning, we were told early on the scene that it was a tanker that had caught fire, and then fire officials there just backed off and said they responded for a report of a tanker fire, but your sources are saying it indeed was a tanker carrying unknown chemicals?
That's what they're saying to me, and at this point, whatever it is, I think they're going off of early images of some surveillance cameras and some other visuals that give them an early look before the entire area under there was consumed in smoke and flame. Nothing short of a disaster sort of pictorial, and trying to get through all of that and get a look before the fact is what is driving this. And I just got some messaging from some sources telling me that they are hard at work in figuring out what it was that did burn. They can't see under there, but they are operating with confidence that it was a fuel tanker truck. And they're calling that their theory. So talk about going in blind with a raging fire, a highway that's collapsed, melted steel, this highway, this superstructure, the work of almost more than 2 decades of design and planning to expand to make travel on this 125,000 car and truck a day highway safer and more efficient, and boom, it's gone in a flash. And now there's a scramble behind the scenes, and we are working to give you the top down of what's going on with that.
Hit the nail on the head, Joe. I mean, this was a terrifying situation. We had, I don't know if you've seen it, but we have viewer video from Citizens app showing someone driving down the southbound lanes and taking video of that fire as it raged on the northbound lanes. They're just driving over the interstate like nothing is happening. So it's really incredible. I know we're still waiting to hear if there are any injuries, but I mean, this was a very dangerous situation for people who were just minding their business driving along the highway.
And who's to think else otherwise? You're driving up Interstate 95 or down 95, and you see lots of flames and smoke. It's still open. It must be okay. I heard the man's commentary that he thought it was a brush fire burning beneath the highway. Man, is there a lot of investigating to be done. Parking underneath the highway, parking something that police are theorizing was a fuel tanker truck. Really reminiscent of a 1996 fire that took out Interstate 95 for weeks in the city of Philadelphia, where for months and years investigations then kicked off to determine why were we storing tires in close proximity to such a major arterial highway.
Yeah, there's so many different investigations happening. What was in that tanker truck, what that tanker truck was doing, how much of this highway can now be salvaged, if any of it. And of course, that's all happening as the firefight continues. Joe Holden on the phone for us. Of course, our anchor and chief investigative reporter. We know you're going to stay on top of this for us, Joe. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jen.
And we want to go back to our live reporter on the scene, Madeline Wright. She has been collecting the very latest information there. Madeline, good morning.
Good morning, Jan. This is going to be a huge disruption to the morning, evening, and afternoon commute tomorrow, for the next week, and likely for the next several months. That's because I-95 north and south are shut down between Academy and Bridge Street, but more specifically, I-95 North has collapsed. Meanwhile, I-95 South has buckled, and it's all because of a vehicle that caught fire underneath the interstate. Now, this here is the intersection of Princeton Avenue and State Road, which is the base of operations for the police department, the fire department, and the Office of Emergency Management. You might be able to see off in the distance some smoke billowing from the source of this fire. Firefighters have been working since 6:15 this morning, trying to get the flames under control. And right now, they haven't completely extinguished the flames. There was a lot of black smoke billowing into the air earlier this morning. They initially said it was a tanker truck that caught fire, but they backed off from that and are saying it could have been a tanker truck. They're still investigating what type of vehicle it was, if anybody was in the vehicle, and why this vehicle caught fire, and why did it do so much damage. It's unprecedented to see damage like this from a vehicle fire underneath or near the highway. Right now, state police are diverting traffic off of the highway. There's a 2-block radius around the area that's been shut down. And I want you to listen to a man earlier this morning that I talked to who said he's now going to have to reconfigure his plans for tomorrow.
It's going to be horrible. Local traffic's going to be horrible. Everybody's going to be backed up. Everybody's going to struggle to get anywhere that they have to go. I mean, this is already a busy intersection as is. Just this area is very busy and populated as is. So just adding to that, it's just going to make things 10 times worse. It's going to be dead stop traffic every day.
And the reason it's going to be dead stop traffic is because with I-95 north and south shut down for an indefinite period of time, that's going to cause huge stress on the detoured roads where the traffic is going to be off the highway, not able to get on as they used to be able to. There's also an environmental concern here with the fuel from the burning vehicle seeping into the Delaware River, which is only a block away from I-95. So the Coast Guard is monitoring that situation. They're keeping an eye on it, as well as the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection. There was also some fuel that got into the underground pipes, which caused some of the manhole covers to explode. And we heard about 13 explosions in the 8 o'clock hour, which was a bit of a fright to people here in the area. There are a lot of homes and businesses around here. So for the last 4 hours, people have not been able to drive freely in this area. Police urging people to stay away, and we'll keep you updated on air and online with any new information. Jan?
And Madeline, we're glad you and your photographer are staying safe out there. This is a story that impacts the entire region, not only people driving on the road, but also the air we breathe. Meteorologist Tammy Sousa is here to break that part of the story down for us. Tammy.
Well, you know, Jan, not that long ago, you had that train incident in Ohio where people had to evacuate their houses, and that was because of chemicals. We don't know what was in this tanker at this point. Now, we're not trying to frighten you, and we're certainly not saying you need to evacuate your house. That is not the case. But we do have that smoke that spread out to the north and the east, and even slightly to the east from this big plume. And there are still plumes that come up from this fire. So within this, there are some pretty dangerous chemicals to be concerned with. So if you are within a mile, 2, perhaps 3 of where this is taking place, if you're upstream of it, we need you to just shut your windows and stay inside. Or if you got to get in your car and go somewhere. That's fine. We don't want you breathing this in. So in Cornwall, Echo Beach, Delanco, all the way up perhaps to Croydon, maybe as far as Ben Salem, West Torresdale, Riverside, that is where we are concerned, because that is where the chemicals are flowing at this point. We already have an air quality alert for all of southeastern Pennsylvania, so now we're adding all of this debris to the air mass that is out there, and that's not good. On top of that, we have a cloud deck that's going to keep it low to the surface. This smoke is down at the surface, so that's why it's going to affect you quickly. It's not falling from high in the sky out there. So this is what we're looking at within this smoke plume, possibly acids, sulfates, nitrates, metals, heavy metals, soot, dust, tar, oils, benzene, propene, all of these things possible because you're talking about a roadway, you're talking about a truck, you're talking about the contents of the truck. This is not like a forest fire that blows smoke in our direction. Jan?
Hard to believe any more serious it can get than this. All right, Tammy, thank you so much. And of course, there are a lot of moving pieces to this story. We are going to have crews monitoring the situation throughout the day. You'll see updates right here on CBS Philadelphia as they come in. And of course, we'll have team coverage tonight on CBS News Philadelphia. Also, be sure to join us tomorrow morning as we watch that all-important morning commute without I-95. Have a great day.
Philadelphia really is a city of neighborhoods. I'm Natasha Brown, and when we say we know this community by heart, it's because we do.